In Belgravia Heights, the streets are bathed in sunlight, with olive trees swaying gently in the breeze, like the symbolic landmark of the city. Everything here is neat and orderly, luxurious and calm, attracting countless people longing for a perfect life. Elisa and John are the focal point in this bustling area. They live in a luxurious 3-story villa with rare orchids planted in the yard, as if a work of art could be photographed at any moment. Their daily life is wrapped in a golden halo. Elisa is a successful interior designer whose works have graced the covers of several prestigious magazines. John is a senior partner at a multinational investment firm, and his reputation in the financial world is as loud as his meticulous work style. Whether at social gatherings or charity galas, the couple is always the center of attention. Every Saturday afternoon, they can be seen on the golf course of the club, dressed in exquisite sportswear, exchanging casual chats with friends while swinging their clubs. In the evening, John often drives his classic sports car, taking Elisa to a fancy dinner party. Their life is like an eternal performance, beautiful, elegant, and harmonious. Yet behind this seemingly perfect picture, small cracks are slowly emerging. Late at night in the study, John's frequent whispered phone calls are becoming more and more noticeable. Elisa accidentally finds an unfamiliar receipt in her husband's wallet. Even at the dinner table, filled with laughter, she occasionally catches John with a pensive expression. Elisa doesn't probe further, but a subtle unease stirs inside her, like a tiny insect gnawing at the calm of her previously peaceful heart. Under the glamorous lights of Belgravia, Elisa's world is quietly changing. And the story is just beginning. If you want to know what happens next, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We'll uncover more secrets in the next chapter. As the night grew deeper, Elisa curled up on the large sofa, her gaze fixed on the crack of the study door. Faint whispers drifted from within, piercing her ears. John's behavior had become increasingly strange lately. Late-night phone calls became more frequent, and during those calls, he always made a point of avoiding her gaze. On one occasion, Elisa found a hotel bill for a Verona Bay hotel in John's wallet, dated during the days he claimed to be on a business trip to London. Doubt and unease quickly began to grow within her. Elisa started to keep a closer eye on John's every move. One weekend he announced another business trip, this time to Paris. Elisa pretended to be indifferent, but inside she had already made up her mind. The next morning she got into her car and secretly followed John on the highway. Hours later, the car came to a stop on the outskirts of a quiet town in Verona Bay. Elisa quietly trailed John until he entered a cozy white house. Laughter could be heard from inside, and Elisa's heart sank. Through the window, she saw a scene that left her stunned. John was embracing a young woman while a girl about 5 years old held his hand and sweetly called him Daddy. Her breath caught in her throat, and the sight before her seemed to tear apart her world. The husband who had never come home late, the man who always smiled and said he loved her, was living with a secret family in another city. How had he kept this hidden from her? On the way back, Elisa tried to suppress the turmoil rising within her, but tears still blurred her vision. Anger, sadness, and humiliation intertwined into an inescapable web. She wanted to confront John, to rush into that cozy home and shatter all the lies, but reason held her back. Back at their home in Belgravia Heights, Elisa lay on the empty bed, her mind in chaos. She didn't tell anyone, nor did she seek help. That night she couldn't sleep, and a single thought kept repeating in her mind. She had to face the truth, to solve this problem on her own. However, the crack in this double life had quietly opened, and Elisa's decision would lead her into an unpredictable abyss. As the night fell, heavy rain relentlessly pounded against the windows of Belgravia Heights. The living room lights were dim, and Elisa sat on the sofa, her hands tightly clasped together, her nails digging into her palms. On the table lay the fruits of her recent weeks of investigation, a stack of hotel receipts, bank statements, and a few photos she had secretly taken, John holding hands with a little girl as they entered a white house in Verona Bay. She knew this moment couldn't be delayed any longer. At 9 o'clock, the sound of the door unlocking broke the rhythm of the rain. John entered, preparing to change his shoes, but when he looked up, he saw Elisa sitting in the middle of the living room, her eyes sharp and piercing. "Sit down." Elisa's voice was cold, emotionless. John furrowed his brow, feeling uneasy, and walked toward the sofa but didn't sit down. "What's going on?" he asked, trying to sound casual. Elisa didn't respond but pushed the stack of evidence toward him on the coffee table. She fixed her gaze on John, her voice low and filled with anger. "Explain this." John's face immediately changed. He reached for the receipts and photos, but his movements were hesitant. The air in the room felt as though it had frozen, with only the thunder and rain outside providing a backdrop. "Did you follow me?" he finally asked, trying to force a smile, though his voice trembled. "Don't change the subject, John." Elisa stood up, her voice rising sharply. "Tell me the truth. The house in Verona Bay, the woman, the child. What is going on?" John's shoulders sagged. He lowered his head and remained silent for a moment before speaking. "Yes, the woman in Verona Bay and a child. That's my—" He paused, his voice barely audible. "My other family." Elisa felt a sharp pain in her chest, as though countless needles were stabbing into her. She gritted her teeth, suppressing the overwhelming emotion threatening to take over. "Why? Why would you do this? You lied to me, lied to our marriage. Was it all a lie?" John slumped further and, trying to explain in a calm tone, continued, "I never meant to hurt you, and I never wanted to leave you. She was just someone I met when you were busy, someone who comforted me. Things got out of control, and that child—" He hesitated. "I couldn't abandon them." Elisa let out a bitter laugh, her eyes filled with rage and disappointment. "So you think this is an excuse? Leading a double life? Hiding behind my back? Living this perfect life?" John tried to move closer to her, but she stepped back, pulling away. He continued to defend himself. "Elisa, I still love you." "That doesn't change anything. It's just— His voice trailed off, becoming a faint murmur lost in the thunder. Elisa glared at him, her eyes cold as steel. "John, this didn't just change us. It destroyed my trust in you. Tonight's confrontation isn't the end, it's just the beginning." She turned and walked toward the stairs, leaving John standing alone, a conflicted and torn expression on his face. The thunder roared, and the rain hammered against the windows, reflecting the unease and determination of the night. On this stormy night, the lights of Belgravia still shone brightly, but the atmosphere inside the house was as tense as a volcano ready to erupt. Elisa sat alone in the study, her eyes vacant, clutching a torn wedding photo in her hand. Suddenly the door opened, and John stood in the doorway, his expression grim. "Elisa, this is pointless," he said, his tone cold and distant, almost unrecognizable. "You need to understand that we can't continue living like this." Elisa lifted her head, her gaze sharp. "Continue? What exactly do you want to continue? Enjoying your other family while I'm left here like a fool, kept in the dark?" John stepped into the study and closed the door behind him. He spoke in a low but firm voice. "I'm leaving. I've had enough of this farce. The property, the company, all of it will be mine. The law is on my side." Upon hearing this, Elisa suddenly stood up, fury burning in her eyes. "You dare? After everything I've sacrificed for this marriage, you want to take it all away? John, you're despicable." The argument between them grew more heated, their voices echoing through the mansion, competing with the sound of the rain outside. John's voice was cold as he retorted, "Despicable? If it weren't for your indifference and selfishness, our marriage wouldn't have ended up like this. These words hit Elisa like a bolt of lightning. She turned sharply, grabbing a handgun from the drawer in the bookshelf, a weapon she had kept for self-defense. Her hands trembled as she pointed the gun, her voice hoarse. "Shut up! How dare you blame me?" John hesitated for a moment, but quickly regained his composure, shaking his head in mockery. "Elisa, don't lose your mind. You wouldn't dare shoot." Elisa's hands shook violently, but the rage had already consumed her reason. They stood there, frozen, as time seemed to stop. Suddenly, a gunshot shattered the silence of the stormy night. The first shot hit the bookshelf, splintering wood and sending shards flying. John instinctively stepped back, his face turning pale. "Have you lost your mind?" The second shot broke the silence of the room. This time, the bullet grazed John's shoulder, and he staggered backward, clutching his wound, blood dripping onto the expensive carpet. The third shot came soon after, followed by the heavy sound of John collapsing to the floor. His body lay still on the ground as the rain continued to pour outside, but the study was drowned in a suffocating silence. Elisa stood frozen in place, the gun slipping from her hand with a sharp clink. Her gaze was vacant, her face pale, as if the entire world had crumbled in that moment. Rainwater slid down the windows, reflecting her lifeless figure and the tragic outcome of this out-of-control night. At midnight, the flashing lights of police cars illuminated the luxurious mansion of Belgravia Heights like daylight. The officers quickly entered the house and were met with the strong scent of gunpowder still lingering in the air. Elisa sat quietly on the living room sofa, her hands folded in her lap, her expression vacant, as if she was completely unaware of the noise and movement around her. Detective Mike Reynolds, an experienced investigator, was the first to step into the crime scene, the study. What he saw immediately told him that this was no ordinary domestic dispute. John's body lay on the floor, blood already spreading from the wound, while scattered shell casings, broken wood fragments, and a damaged bookshelf filled the room. Mike directed the forensic and ballistics teams to begin their work, while silently making a mental note of the complexity this tragedy was likely to present. The forensic team quickly began their analysis. Ballistic tests showed that 3 bullets had come from the same handgun, and the close-range trajectory of the shots suggested a confrontation. This partly aligned with Elisa's initial statement. "He threatened to leave, and I just pulled the trigger in fear." However, the bloodstained patterns and bullet paths revealed additional clues that pointed to something more hidden. Meanwhile, another team of technicians was recovering data from John's electronic devices. His phone, tablet, and laptop contained numerous encrypted files, and upon decrypting some of them, shocking information was revealed. A financial record, hundreds of pages long, involving offshore accounts and complex money flows. John's double life wasn't just about hiding a secret family. He was also involved in a massive international financial crime syndicate, suspected of money laundering, fraud, and other serious economic offenses. Among these files, emails with several business tycoons surfaced, hinting that John had been a key operator in this criminal conspiracy, and the secret family in Verona was likely a central point for him to hide illicit funds. As the investigation deepened, Detective Mike Reynolds uncovered another unsettling detail. Elisa may have known about some of John's secrets long before the shooting, but why did she lose control that night? Was it purely an emotional outburst, or had she discovered something even more deadly? The reconstruction of the crime scene was nearing completion, but the truth remained elusive. Detective Mike took one last look around the study, as if trying to piece together the full picture of the events. He knew that this domestic tragedy was only the tip of the iceberg, and deeper secrets were waiting to be uncovered beneath the surface. Elisa's arrest shook the entire Belgravia. When she was brought to court, her face was pale, and her eyes were empty, as if she had lost all emotional support. News media gathered outside the courthouse, cameras flashing non-stop, and the eyes of the world were focused on this woman who once had a perfect life. She was charged with premeditated murder, with the prosecutor arguing that she had carried out a deadly attack on her husband John in a cold-blooded plan. In court, the prosecutor provided ample evidence detailing John's double life and his involvement with a massive international financial crime syndicate. These crimes revealed that John was not only a heartless husband, but also a threat to society and families as a criminal. The prosecutor emphasized that Elisa's actions were the result of deep betrayal by her husband and the emotional trauma she had suffered, leading her to make a fatal decision in a moment of emotional breakdown. The trial debates reached a climax, with emotions and reason clashing, law and morality in conflict, pushing the case to an unpredictable high point. The global media's attention turned this trial into a spectacle of public opinion. It was not only an examination of Elisa's personal fate, but also a profound reflection on modern marriage, family, and social ethics. In the end, the jury's deliberation, whether they would lean toward the defense of emotional collapse or uphold the charge of premeditated murder, became the focal point of society. After the trial, Elisa was found guilty, though the jury determined that she had lost control due to emotional collapse. However, because her anger and actions were excessively extreme, the court sentenced her to 15 years in prison. The verdict sparked widespread debate in the media and among the public. Many believed that she deserved a lighter sentence, as her actions were deeply influenced by her husband's betrayal, while others insisted that, regardless of emotional turmoil, violent behavior could not be excused. Meanwhile, John's criminal activities gradually came to light during the investigation. The Belgravia police, in collaboration with multiple international law enforcement agencies, discovered that John had been involved in a large-scale money laundering and fraud operation affecting financial institutions across several countries. This incident not only revealed John's double life, but also implicated several multinational companies and financial groups, causing a global economic shock. A cross-border investigation swiftly began, and relevant institutions started to clean up the complex networks John had been a part of, with numerous financial reform measures being proposed to prevent such crimes from happening again. The Belgravia community also underwent subtle changes after the scandal. The neighborhood, once filled with luxury and harmony, now felt more distant and indifferent. People began to question each other's lives, and social gatherings, once frequent, dwindled. Elisa and John's once glamorous image became the subject of widespread discussion. The once perfect facade of Belgravia's upper society seemed to have shattered in the wake of the incident, leaving behind nothing but a series of secrets uncovered.